No, it happens. It's true.
Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula.
I'm Fiorella. You sounded so serious for the first time, and I had to laugh.
On the ones and twos because you're the one who's being annoying right now. Usually, I'm supposed to be annoying when we open the show, and you got annoying right before the show. Who's possessed now? Who's being possessed?
There was just this thing about this couple that was selling dolls that they thought that they were creepy dolls, and people were buying them. People have a thing for...
You said the dolls were possessed.
Yes, because some of those dolls are possessed, according to the people. Like, they have spirits and energies and stuff. Anyway, I don't know why that bothered you. Jeez. You're so serious, guys. Have you ever seen pasta that serious? Oh my God.
I'm supposed to be the annoying one when we start off. Thank you. Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Good morning. It's Monday. Kristen Nye. First in the door, fam. Thank you for the Super Ray contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. Put that in your little clippy up thing there over there. Glenn Combs, bring on the truth. We will. What was the name of the show you did just recently and stuff? Did an awesome Uncle Warren, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was it Bulla shit? No more Bulla?
With Uncle Warren?
Uncle
Warren.
Bulla.
Extra Bulla.
Extra Bulla shit. I call it Bulla shit, but it's extra Bulla. Uncle Warren made an awesome little clip of us together and how many times I annoy you, and it was just your rolling eyes. And Johnny had to get the llama. Great.
Jesus
There's
Christ.
Pedro. Get Leo. Fam, here's Leo.
Alrighty. So, guys, we're gonna be going over the revelations that we all knew. Right, that the CIA pretty much runs its own shadow government and can do whatever it wants, and and they were plotting an assassination. Mike Pompeo was at the helm, but he's not the only one involved. This situation has preceded Pompeo. It started during the Obama administration. Let's remind everybody that the Obama administration persecuted 8 whistleblowers, more than any other administration before it combined. So, this whole thing went to the highest levels of government. We're going to go over that next show. There was just too much information to go over.
Yes.
Maybe we'll have somebody on. We'll see what happens. We're kind of crazy this week.
Yes.
So, yeah, I just want to let you guys know we are going to cover that, but not on this show right now.
The reason why is we also have a long segment today when it comes to that breakdown on elections, the Arizona audit that was... Fam, they spun it right out of the gate. But just to piggyback really quick to the whole Donald Trump thing, I think the CIA, we talk about their psychological warfare. I think they knew that Donald Trump watched a lot of Godfather movies because he wanted to whack Soleimani, right? It was like, no, I can't go intervention to the libertarians and it will ruin my schnick, but we can whack people. So they whack Soleimani, right? Like they did this kind of weird kind of warfare. So I think the CIA was like, well, let's whack Julian Assange too. But not for nothing. Even Madam Clinton said, can't we drone him? Right? So, I mean, everybody wanted to whack that guy. Johnny, that light I didn't put on right over there, I think it'll be a little bit helpful if it... Yeah. Let's see if it's... Hey! Look at that. I look beautiful and stuff. But, fam, what are we going to talk about first?
Can only do so much, fam. So...
What does that mean?
You know.
Stop.
So AOC apologized for her vote, right? And so that just basically is admitting guilt, because if she did do nothing wrong by voting present on the Iron Dome, then she wouldn't have said anything. She hadn't even been on Twitter. She's been really, really quiet, but she did put out this letter, and I'm going to read the letter because you guys kind of have to hear it, because it's kind of bad. So this is what she said: is a note to our New York 14 constituents from Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
So this is to her base, right? To her voters.
Yeah, well, but it's to everybody, because she got a lot of criticism, even from people who liked her, which I was surprised at some of those people coming out.
Yes,
I was like,
too.
wow, okay, cool. Going after Tulsi, going after AOC. I mean, people are just holding people accountable now. I mean, it's about fucking time. Okay.
It's the new fam.
So she said, yesterday, the House called to the floor a rush $1 billion supplemental military funding bill for Israel's Israel's Iron Dome defense system. I want to be clear with your community, with our community, that I am opposed to this bill, but ultimately cast a present vote. My job as your representative is to first and foremost serve with transparency and remain accountable to you, the people of New York's 14th Congressional District. First, let me begin with why I believe this bill should have been opposed. Contrary to popular narrative, this bill was not for all U.S. funding of the Iron Dome, and opposing it would not defund U.S. financing of the system in any way, shape, or form. Since 2011, the U.S. has provided $1.7 billion for the Iron Dome and is already financially committed to continuing these funds through 2028. That is true. This bill adds an additional $1 billion in funding in 1 year to the system alone. For context, that is an amount in 1 year that approaches all funding to the system we have provided over the last decade. And this is in addition to $3 billion authorized earlier this year in other forms of military funding to the Israeli government. Yeah, that's the fucking problem. I believe strongly that Congress should take greater scrutiny with all military funding across the world. I believe that for far too long, the U.S. has handed unconditional aid to the Israeli government while doing nothing to address or raise the persistent human rights abuses against the Palestinian people, and that this imbalance of power must be centered in any honest conversation about Israel and Palestine, in addition to many other governments we militarily fund with a pattern of human rights abuses, such as the Saudi and Colombia-related amendments I introduced last week as well. True. She's telling you like what we know. In addition to opposing the substance of the Iron Dome supplemental bill, the process of bringing it to the House floor was deeply unjust. The legislative language itself was initially introduced earlier this week by way of an attempt to quietly slip this funding into routine legislation without any of the unusually necessary committee debate, markup, or regular order. That's what I talked about last week. They found a way to introduce it by itself, Steny Hoyer, so they didn't have to go through the committees, etc. So a funding leap this significant in a policy area that is already so charged and fraught for many communities, particularly our own, deserves the respect of proper legislative process. Unfortunately, that process did not happen. The reckless decision by House leadership to rush this controversial vote within a matter of hours and without true consideration created a tinderbox of vitriol, disingenuous framing, deeply racist accusations and depictions, and lack of substantiative discussion on this matter. I want to be clear that the decision to rush the vote, virtually preventing any member from meaningfully consulting with their community, was both intentional and unnecessary. Even the night before, as it became clear that the discourse around this issue was quickly devolving from substance to hateful targeting, I personally had a call with the House Majority Leader to request a 24-hour stay of the vote so that we could do... No, that's Steny Hoyer. Pelosi's the Speaker of the House. So that we could do the work necessary to bring down the temperature and volatility, explain our positions, and engage our communities. That request was summarily dismissed. Not only was the request dismissed, but despite the House having almost 8 straight hours of votes yesterday, this vote was chosen to be the first despite being one of the most controversial. The damage of this careless process created a very real spillover effects into our community. It created a real sense of panic and horror among those in our community who otherwise engaged thoughtfully in these discussions, and fueled the discussion to devolve to a point where it became clear that this vote would risk a severe devolution of the good faith community fabric that allows us to responsibly join in a struggle for human rights and dignity everywhere, from Palestine to the Bronx and Queens. In short, the rush of this vote into a matter of hours was threatening to tear our community apart and permanently close the doors that we desperately need open in order to progress. So, in other words, she's blaming Steny Hoyer. She's blaming the House leadership into taking this bill, like we said, and making it a singular bill. It was supposed to be part of the spending bill, but they took it out. They did a whole thing to make it not have to go through committee, and she's saying that because of that, she didn't have time to really talk to her community and see how they felt, but she couldn't risk pushing away people from her community that could potentially be, for this, be pro-Israel, because she does have some people in her community that are, especially if we're looking what we talked about last week, where she might get redistricted, and so Jamal Bowman might as well. So she's basically saying that I wish I had more time to really assess the situation with my community, and I was going to vote no, but now it just seems like this would have created so many problems and that we really I couldn't say no because I would have, it's just, there was just so much hatred and vitriol and all this stuff and volatility, and that she's making the excuse that she basically got bullied into doing this, right? Which is what people were saying, that she was bullied. But here's my thing with it is, there's no, like, I take full responsibility for ultimately deciding to do, like, take fucking responsibility. She's putting it on everybody else. I understand that she's bullied, but again, everybody is bullied in Congress. Like, that's the point. She said, we're going to go in there and we're going to, what did she say? Bring the ruckus. This isn't bringing the ruckus. You're doing what you're told.
Yeah, this is bringing the capitulation.
You're doing what you're told. And like, it just seems weak. And this apology is extremely just, makes it even worse in a way, because she's like excusing herself by saying, I'm actually against this. Here are all the reasons why this is wrong. Here are all the money we give to Israel. So it's like, she knows that this is wrong. Yeah, she knows. And she's like, didn't want to do it. It seems, it almost seems like she's at least how she's portraying that, she's like, like, I don't know, like kidnapped, like she can't make her own decisions. Like, this is like, they're forcing her hand. But then that would happen with everybody else. And then like, what's the point then? We can't reform the Democratic Party then, is what you're telling me, because this is what's going to happen to anybody that maybe, let's give her the benefit of the doubt and say that she actually did want to vote no, but somehow, put her career, right, and her staying power and the committees and all these things that she's afraid of losing before that. So if you're going to constantly choose that over voting against war, voting against, imperialism, then what's the difference between you and a Republic or a Democrat, establishment Democrat then?
Well, let's be honest. Number one, this vote is not going to kill her in her district, okay? She might have some voters that are pro-Israel and whatnot like that.
She has likely more anti
than anything. She has a lot of poor people there too as well, because, you've already appropriated all this money for Israel. You could have easily sold this, say, okay, enough is enough right now. Right now, we need this $1 billion for right here at home. We need this money for right now. The military is getting out of control. We're running amok, and we don't need to give Israel an extra $1 billion out of the blue. So you could sell it any way, shape, or form. And that's why I'm saying the squad, they're so fugazi, because if they really wanted to make us think about this thing, they would have walked out of the chambers, had a press conference ready, and started yelling and screaming and saying enough is enough. Okay, we've gone along with their ways and we've funded Israel to the teeth. Now they want to give $1 billion to Israel while our people are suffering.
Why don't we give $1 billion to, I don't know, cancel student debt? Or to help homeless people, or to, there's so many, or Medicare or whatever. There's so many ways you can spend this money, and they don't spend it whatsoever. And it's like they have two different people they're worried about, or maybe three different people. You know what I'm saying? Their voters and their constituents, and then their donors and the fucking big money interest behind the closed doors. And then maybe if we get down to it, the third group of people, the actual people on the streets who are suffering right now that actually need their help and actually voted to put the squad in there, including AOC, to help them. And they've helped a bupkis. They've been spinning this shit left and right. You have press conferences. You have millions of people who follow you. You'll get eyes on you like this, and you'll be able to put anything that you want on display. But they don't. They just go along quietly, little phoniness crying on the floors, waving their hands and whatnot. And at the end of the day, another $1 billion goes to Israel. Another $1 billion. So yeah, like she said, in addition to what we already gave to them.
In addition to earlier this year, we gave more money.
So this is an old video from a couple years ago. And they're framing it like, oh, AOC hates Israel, but this is just her thoughts on Israel from before.
But I am, of course, the dynamic there in terms of geopolitics and the war in the Middle East is very different than people expressing their First Amendment right to protest.
Well, yes, but I also think that what people are starting to see, at least in the occupation of Palestine, is just an increasing crisis of humanitarian condition. And that to me is just where I tend to come from on this issue.
You use the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that?
That's so funny.
I think what I meant is like the settlements that are increasing in some of these areas and places where Palestinians are experiencing difficulty in access to their housing and homes.
Do you think you can expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd also just, I am not the expert on geopolitics on this issue.
She's not.
What do you mean by that?
And
fam?
that's she. You see how she has to like toe this line because again, Israel, and not people are gonna say this isn't Israel and a lot of these Zionists control a lot of our government. They influence. Look how much money we give to Israel. I mean, like again, they have healthcare for all. They have a better standard of living than Americans do. Like that's people. Americans should be angry that especially the people on the right, like. They're not putting America first. They're giving all this funding to Israel. We shouldn't be doing that. This is why you have some Republicans like Thomas Massey, who voted against this. And even, what's her name? Laura Boebert or whatever her name is, voted against the Iron Dome. So, for that reason, right? But like, the thing is, like, they're so powerful. The Israeli lobbyists are so fucking powerful. Like, they fearmonger you into like saying you cannot say anything like this, and they viciously attack people as anti-Semitic with the slightest bit of saying, hey, Israel is an occupation. You can't even say that.
Could you say that?
You can't even say that.
Could you answer the question that AOC couldn't answer? Fam, so what do you mean when you say that, like, Israel's an occupation of Palestine? What do you mean?
Because they're literally illegally occupying a country. They are an apartheid state. They are, in pushing humanitarian like violations on a bunch of Palestinians. Palestinians live in an open air prison. They cannot leave the country by land or sea. It is an absolute disaster. It's a crime against humanity. It is obvious that, the Palestinians, and you don't even have to get into the discussion of who was there first, but the reality is the Palestinians are having their land that they've been living in confiscated. It'd be like a random person walking in, like a rich contractor walking in and kicking you out of your house, even if you're paying rent, even if you own your house, just because they want to. That's literally what it is. Israel's an occupation. Israel was never supposed to be a state, and now it's completely occupying every single settlement, and it's just disastrous. And people can't even say the truth because that's the truth.
Yep.
No matter, even if you are Israeli, that's the reality. And you can't even, it's really hard to think about a two-state solution, because Israel won't allow that. They'll still keep Palestinians down. And then a one-state solution, we'd have to stop funding Israel. So it's kind of like, it's that constant thing. Like
Here's the thing.
Is what?
Just be honest about what you feel like. That was so full of shit.
Yeah.
When they asked her about the occupation or what do you mean, she was like, "Oh, I mean the settlements. Are you talking about the extra settlements?" Just speak how you feel. If you feel, listen, Israel has the right to exist, but they should stay within their territory. And if they want more settlements, we need to talk about it. Israel doesn't have the right to exist. It's an occupation. It's owned by the Palestinians. Just be consistent with what you want to say and be honest with it is. She's so full of shit. Did you see how she got caught like a deer in the headlights? Oh, fam, I'm not a geopolitical.
We know. But you just vote on legislation.
Next question.
Wait, but she votes on legislation. She makes laws, right?
Stupid.
Let's go back to the fucking like beginnings of whatever, those cartoons that they showed you. The legislative branch makes laws, right? And so if you say I'm not a geopolitical expert on this, I'm sorry, but if you're going to be in Congress, you need to know the basics about fucking foreign policy. Like, she just made herself look worse. And
this handsome gentleman right here, this picture right here, I just want to make sure everybody knows, this is Adam Smith. This is why Pramila Jayapal was always on my list of, you are so full of shit, girl, that if you're going to sit out there and you're going to endorse this guy over Sarah Smith at the time, and I just thought this was ridiculous. I'm like, this guy's one of the biggest war hawks in Congress.
Yeah, so along with this, right, at around the same time that this happened with the Iron Dome vote, the House had just passed $768 billion in a defense bill. This is the largest bill. I mean, this is more than what Biden had asked, just like it was last time. So this was last Thursday that endorsed a major budget boost, dealing the biggest blow yet to President Joe Biden's Pentagon spending plans. They approved this National Defense Authorization Act in a 316 to 113 vote with broad support from Democrats and Republicans. And yes, so this is going to require women to register for the military draft, by the way.
Yeah.
So they're going to be reviewing information from the Biden administration on the withdrawal from Afghanistan. And one of the other things I wanted to also point out was that, let's see, there was something here. Okay, this is what I wanted to point out. So while they passed this bill, which, I mean, I'm going to show you some graphs on it. They rejected the bill that AOC and Barbara Lee and Mark Pocan had put out, right? They were trying to decrease the Pentagon budget by 10%. So they rejected that bill by 286 votes to 142 votes. So that attempt that AOC did was entirely just for show because they knew it wasn't going to pass. I mean, okay, fine, I'll give them points for doing it, but they knew it wasn't going to pass, right? So my whole point is while she's, she voted present for this Iron Dome, while she attempted to put this thing out to reduce the Pentagon budget by 10%, everybody knew that we have a bunch of warmongers in Congress and that bill was going to be shot down and that this bill was going to be gigantic. And so here's the massive bill, right? You can look at how it passed.
This is Sam Semler.
From Sam Semler, this is a tweet. I just want to show the pictures, right? Because the 778 billion Pentagon budget was 316 to 113. Over twice as many Republicans voted against it than Democrats.
Say that again.
Okay, twice as many Republicans voted against it than Democrats. So you can see the numbers right there.
Wait, I thought the Democratic Party is the party of the working class and anti-war.
Not anymore.
Peace, fam.
Not anymore. It's kind of difficult to tell who's a neocon and not. I mean, they're just, they're bipartisan in their neocon ways. And then you can see the 2020 Pentagon budget versus the budgets from 2016 versus the budgets from 2021. And you can see that it's gotten ridiculously big. I mean, it's just gotten bigger and bigger. Who knows? Next time it'll probably be bigger. I mean, this is just
it's progressive.
I thought we were gonna go, rein in the military. We were talking about Pompeo. You were talking about all these military generals that Trump had. Well, obviously that doesn't fucking matter. I mean, look at this right now, right? As we left Afghanistan, it doesn't matter, guys. This is just.
I got a joke, fam. What's the only thing progressive in Congress? The war budget. It's like the only thing that keeps going up, ladies and gentlemen, stuff like that. And let me tell you something. Americans are asleep at the wheel when it comes to this shit.
Yeah.
It really does suck because, during the last campaign, we were going over like how many people and looking at statistics that really pay attention to foreign policy. And it's too low right now. Because if you're fiscally concerned, that's where a lot of the money goes. When you say we don't have the money to pay for this, but they got almost $800 billion to drop bombs. Remember when they went to drones? I thought it was supposed to be cheaper. No, it's not. It's here you go. And nobody's making us think about it. You talk about like the squad sitting at the steps and everything like that. If they were really anti-war, they would pull an anti-war protest. All right, guys, when the vote comes up and we're going to just get up and we're going to walk out of the Congress, the cameras will be there ready for us and we're going to make a stink about it. And we're not going to leave here until they revote on that budget again and say no to it.
Right.
And then tell everybody to call your congressperson. Your congressperson voted yes on and put them on display.
Right.
This needs to stop.
Especially now when people are still hurting, right? And, we've gone over several of these spending bills in the last few years. Guys, they pretty much take the same text, copy, paste it, and then just add a couple things to it every time.
They add their contracts in there.
That's
this
pretty
money will
much
go here.
They all look the same. You can go back to the 2016 one, and then they all pretty much look the same, but they keep adding more and more money to it.
Yep.
And then this other thing I wanted to just point out, because this happened, I saw this today. Did you want to show that at all? Okay. All right. So this is the Just Democrats is what I call them, the Just Democrats. So the Just Democrats retweeted this from Jennifer Epstein. I don't think there's a relation, but she said, memo from Sunrise Movement, Justice Dems, and others. While moderates in 2021 are repeating past mistakes, progressives have learned the right lessons. Instead of undercutting the president ahead of an election year, progressives are the ones keeping the full Biden agenda on track. So they're patting themselves on the back for capitulating to the establishment, right? And I just wanted to let people know you can't change these people. You can't change them. People are still trying to, fix this Democratic Party. Nina Turner has announced that she's running in 2022 like everybody thought she would. She's going to have even less people supporting her this time. Like, people are starting to see finally through the fucking bullshit because it's about time. I mean, like, the Justice Democrats, Sunrise Movement, we've seen it with robbery receipts. They're funded by just dark money. They're funded by special interests. They're funded by people who are pro-war, pro-imperialist policies. You're not going to get any change from the people who started this mess. It's just not going to happen. So, and
they have the media, so they can really dupe a lot of people and stuff. That's why we're sitting here. Yeah. We're sitting here today going over the same things, the reasons why we started this show, as we did, years ago. Because of what they're doing right now today. They convince people, they do people. And then there's a little theatrics that are involved. We have no friends in Congress, ladies and gentlemen. Zero friends.
And meanwhile, Congress, we saw Marjorie Taylor Greene and her little Scooby-Doo meme with communism being she's obsessed with
China.
Communism. And now they just keep bringing in really bad memes. Johnny, you're going to have to go teach them. We'll send Glory there to teach them how to make better memes, because I honestly, I don't even know what this is about, but it's just funny. People are laughing. Bet. Republicans are the strong Chad. Democrats
the
are
scenario reminds me of this popular meme. Bet.
How did these people get in office?
I'm just I want to go get paid to literally, be an asshole and then just put up pictures of memes all day. Hell yeah. And then barely show up to work.
Queen.
Every time they get a vacation, they're like, okay, we're leaving. We're not coming. Come on, man. I want to get paid that much to do nothing.
Mike Gravel said, he was like, the first time I got to the Senate, I was like, oh my God, how did I get here? Because 6 months later, I was like, how the hell did the rest of them get here?
Yeah,
it's like, how did these people get here? Well, that's the thing, fam. Guess what? They control elections.
So I forgot to put the video where she actually gets called a warmonger. I don't know if we can find it, but this is just AOC. Remember they had the train, the train they were picking up at AOC's dress, and then they had Hillary's little train. So there you go. It's just, it's just funny. But she went there, and it was in Ireland, in Belfast, Ireland, which is like the northern part of Ireland. And they were shouting, warmonger. Did you see that? It was
as I was walking, and there was in that English accent, you're a warmonger.
Irish.
It was Irish. Sorry, my bad.
God.
It was in Belfast. You're right.
Get it right, fam.
It's crazy though too, as well. I as a sports fan too, as well. There's a lot more fuck Joe Bidens in the stadiums now. Yeah. It was at the Ryder Cup. It was at a couple games this week. There's a lot of fuck Joe Biden. Fuck Joe Biden.
There it is. This gave me satisfaction. War criminal. That's what they say. Her reputation precedes her, right?
What about the Secret Service people? If I'm working Secret Service right now, I got to be walking around going my job is to keep these assholes fucking alive. I hate my life. I'm looking out. Of course people want to kill these people over here. I mean, who wouldn't want to? It's just terrible.
Or some of them are just, that's all they know.
I think they watched a lot of movies and they were like, I want to be a Secret Service agent, but who knows? Is that it for this section?
Yeah,
Anything
that's
else?
it.
We are surrounded by war criminals. Johnny, you got anything else, or can I read some Super Rays? All right, Roar Media. Adam Smith is a cuck for Northrop, Lockheed, Raytheon, and Boeing. Don't ever assume Washington State is progressive. We need some Convo Couch cleansing in Washington State. Love you, fams. Love you too, Oz,
Thank
Shanda,
you,
Amber. Love you guys in Roar up there in Washington. Shadowban refugee. Paul, you've been doing some amazing work. Get at me. Let's get some more information about this. He's been keeping his eyes on these bills. He did the breakdown of the first 500 pages of the infrastructure bill. It's got a lot of play. It's on YouTube or Rokfin. Please go check out Paulie and Shadowban Refugee. Pelosi setting House floors on multiple pieces of legislation Thursday, including the reconciliation bill. Because if they don't pass them Thursday, the government shuts down and runs out of money. But guess what? There's still no text released to the public. Nothing to see here. Literally, there's nothing to see here. But we vote on it.
Yep.
Criminals.
Everybody's been looking for it. Everybody's been looking. There's no text. None.
Glory Jones, thank you for the super rate contribution. And by the way, go check out Paulie. He's doing awesome work. The meme is fucking shite, says Glory. Put me in Congress. I'll get some S-tier Epstein and Bush did 9/11 memes for those cucks.
Yeah, Glory will put him in
Bush
shape.
did 9/11. 74 people watching on the Rokfin. We have one person watching on the Odyssey. We have 219 watching on the YouTubes. Get on over, like, share,
All right,
subscribe.
guys, let's get this number up. So, guys, I was pretty happy with most of Pedro Castillo's speech at the UN, right? And we're going to break it down here, what he's saying. However, the speech was at the UN. He was reading from something. He normally doesn't always read. He sometimes mostly just speaks. And some of the things he said, I don't know, fams. You'll have to listen with me. Kind of worried me in terms of the Agenda 30 when he started talking about that. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but let's see. So one of the things he focused on at the UN was transforming Peru via education, housing, healthcare, and providing jobs with a good salary, right? And he said he was compelled to the poor. And this is from the video that is in English where they have a translator. I watched the Spanish version too to make sure. Her translation was decent. It wasn't all 100%, things get lost. But yeah, let's just watch the first 2 minutes and we'll see what you think.
It is the first time in the history of my country that a school teacher from the rural world has assumed the leadership and destination of my country. I am compelled by my responsibility towards the poor, the disenfranchised, the most vulnerable people, businesses, middle classes, and all those who have suffered from the pandemic without exclusion, all Peruvians. Peru is a cradle of one of the greatest civilizations in the history of humanity. It is a multicultural country, which is multi-ethnic, and it has staked my government to build a society and a state with roots in the people, with social inclusion that would eliminate inequality, unfair distribution of wealth, and which would build a sound and solid democratic society. A society whereby freedom and civil rights would be guaranteed by a democratic and representative government and state that would drive forward the participation of the people and governments at the subnational level, regional and local levels, in all processes in taking decisions that impact the destiny and lives of our people. I reaffirm the vocation and affiliation, which is democratic, of my government. I reaffirm its commitment to social justice. The task is not just to consolidate the rule of law and the division of powers, but also to make effective in political life the exercise of the rights of the people on a day.
So all these things he was talking about are, good things. Just talking, this is the first time in history that a teacher and, a strike leader, somebody that's from the rural Peru has become president. It is unprecedented. Somebody as left as him also. It's rare. I mean, like I said, Peru was pretty much largely encapsulated by a neoliberal type of government for the longest time. And he faced a lot of opposition. He's still facing a lot of opposition. He had elected a Marxist economist who was pushed out. So there's that. Now, all of these things are good. They're things that you could hear someone here talk about, right? A progressive talk about. People were afraid because of his views on religion and his views on, sexuality, that he wouldn't be this progressive, but it seems like he's fine. So on the next, did you want to say anything?
No, please go.
So
I mean, his hat is awesome. I love that.
People really
hat.
comment on his hat.
Love that hat.
But then he goes on to talk about how the specifics and talks about a collective whole that is providing the people of Peru healthcare, employment, and that is in accordance with the laws and the rights of Mother Nature, which is something very, very much that Evo Morales pushed in Bolivia. Like the Pachamama, the Mother Earth, like being in congruence with nature and with the earth. And it's a very indigenous type of belief. Just do not exploit the resources, do not exploit what you have. So I really like that part. Let's hear what he has to say there.
On the national economy and the world will impact our responsible management and efficient macroeconomic framework in order to continue expanding and growing and provide better redistribution of income. At the same time, Peru presents indicators of inequality and extreme exclusion, a situation which compromises the values and ethics of a democratic society, impacts the competitiveness of the state and the economy, and that is why it's necessary to provide social transformation that will allow all Peruvian men and women to enjoy their social and economic rights, in addition to fundamental freedoms, civil rights, and political rights. A transformation of all households and every family, their rights in education, health care, decent employment, dignified salaries, social security, access to housing, and access to individual life, economics, and a collective which is respectful of the rights of Mother Earth. We also endorse the historic initiative of Secretary General Antonio Guterres to build a common agenda in the world, in a post-pandemic world, that would establish a new social contract. You have reminded us, Mr. Secretary General, that the 10 richest men in the world combined wealth increased by $500 million since the beginning of the pandemic, while we are grappling with the worst employment crisis since the Great Depression, with millions of people out of work or underemployed. Given the unequal distribution of wealth, the Secretary General is asking the world to have a new social contract worldwide, which we fully endorse. The same diagnosis.
Okay, so all of those good things, like I said, but this is where I kind of started getting a little bit, like, is this for the UN? Is this just because I don't know if we've talked about the Great Reset, we've talked about, what the fourth industrial revolution is, and countries like Peru would be one of the prime targets of this, like extracting of the rich resources, the minerals, in Bolivia and Peru, the lithium, you have copper, you have a bunch of these minerals. And, one of the things that he talked about was making sure that the wealth of the country goes to Peruvians, not outside of the country. The problem with a lot of what was said in Davos, if you watch the World Economic Forum, was they talked about stakeholder capitalism, trying to reimagine regular capitalism as stakeholder capitalism. And basically it's the same thing, but it's worse because you're not going to own anything, right? The whole thing is I'll own nothing and I'll be happy not owning anything, because it's this whole idea that everything will be accessible to you, but you'll be at the dependence of the establishment. So this, and we could do a whole separate show on the fourth industrial revolution and the World Economic Forum. Like I said, I've been trying to get Cory Morningstar on, but this part, I was just kind of like, what do you mean by this? This is very broad and vague. So let's listen at about 6 minutes. The pandemic stuff.
When we look at the risks of COVID, which took the lives of more than 4.5 million people in the world, and the number of infected with COVID exceeded 220 million in the second consecutive year of this pandemic. And this is the context against which this general debate is taking place. Vaccines have opened the way and faith for humanity to assume the conviction that we will win this battle. But combating the pandemic has shown and demonstrated the international system incapacity to cooperate under principles of solidarity and efficiency. We need agreements in place that will ensure equitable access to vaccines and their application. Multilateral cooperation is still very much absent in fighting COVID-19. The initiative of a new global agenda should include vigorous and urgent multilateral action to combat the pandemic and allow access for all countries, especially the poorest, to vaccines and health coverage. Peru will be an active and dynamic member in the common effort of all countries gaining access, which is inclusive, equitable, and non-discriminatory to all diagnoses, therapies, medications, and vaccines, as well as to technology and healthcare products, including their components and precursors, as required in responding to COVID-19 as a worldwide priority, including access which is fair. We must attach greatest priority to strengthening international scientific cooperation to combat the pandemic. We must strengthen initiatives that have been developed with this view in mind, especially given that I want to state on behalf of Peru the signing of a world agreement between heads of state and the owners of patents to guarantee universal access to the vaccine of all inhabitants of the planet without any privileges or discrimination. This would be a serious demonstration of our commitment to life and health for all peoples.
Why? Why wouldn't you just go make a deal with Cuba? You know what I'm saying?
Well, this is the UN. That's what I'm saying. This is the UN forum. That's what I'm saying. Like, your audience matters, right? I don't know if that's a thing, but what I'm saying is, it doesn't sound bad, like saying, we're gonna provide people access to vaccines. He also said in other medication, other type of medication. He didn't exclude that, but it's just kind of like I don't know. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean like every vaccine? Because he did take the Chinese vaccine himself. So does that mean every vaccine? I mean, it's a little broad right now. I'd have to see specifications. I don't have a problem with giving people access to any vaccine. I have a problem with the trusting the UN and trusting the people in power right now, and this whole idea that third world countries, they want the vaccine and they haven't received it, is what the left has been using to say that vaccines are fine, right? The thing is, a lot of people in third world countries do want the vaccine because they assume that a lot of, like, the West is far more advanced and technologically astute, so they think that, oh yeah, like, the vaccine is supposed to be great and safe. A lot the mainstream people in third world countries, that's how they feel about the vaccine. That's absolutely true.
So.
Like,
fam, I mean, what I just saw here is just him just stating that, third world countries like Peru and South America, they don't get access, the same access as that. What he's mostly talking about is about just like the access, right? Yeah. He's not really talking about the whatever.
Yeah, he's not talking about mandates or anything like that.
But, so I don't see anything wrong with what he said.
Yeah, no, I don't see most of anything wrong with what he said.
There was no specifics asked for. There was nothing. He never quoted the U.S. He never quoted. He did say the patent thing. Yeah. I don't know if China has patents.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. Like,
but that's a good thing, though. That's what we want. We want the patent. We don't want the patent.
Exactly. You want people to have access because that's the leftist
That's how you get
argument.
Qualified immunity.
That's the leftist argument.
That's
is
how you
that
get rid of qualified immunity if the patents are not there.
right? But the that's what I'm saying. The leftist argument is that people don't have people in third world countries don't have access to this vaccine.
And that's a bad argument because that's ignoring everything else that we know about, that we talk about on Rokfin.
Right, exactly. So, I didn't really see too much of a problem. It's only when he starts talking about the, and I think it starts later on, where he starts talking about the commitment to a new international global alliance, which.
Well, how do you know he's talking with the U.S. though? Like, I don't.
No. When
it's
he's
very
global includes like everybody.
Right.
Like, global includes everybody. He's not saying anything about the U.S. But this is the UN. The UN is an organization that, I mean, it's the United Nations, right? It's a lot of people have criticized the UN. A lot of people want to get rid of the UN and dissolve the UN because it's really hasn't done it. It'll say, oh, it's a violation of international rights, but they don't do anything really. So that's the only thing. Like, nothing he really said is like bad. I'm just saying, like, it's very broad, in my opinion.
I don't understand, like, you're bringing it up then. Like, I don't understand, like, him saying that.
Because it's in the whole context of everything he said. I listened to it in Spanish and English.
Right. But, he didn't call for, like, a global agenda, right?
Not yet.
Like no.
We haven't gotten to that part yet. Yeah.
But, I mean, like, from what I've heard right now, it's not anything. I'm hearing anything wrong.
No, I just think it's very broad. And initially his government was more, it's been kind of like,
they just had the what's it called? The Latin American and Caribbean states thing. Maybe that's what he's referring to.
Maybe.
As a global thing.
That's what I'm saying. It's very broad, so it's hard to assess. But initially, he's had issues with putting an anti-imperialist in there who had to step down because the Peruvian government forced him to. He had an anti-imperialist, I think it was a anti-imperialist advisor of sorts, and the guy had to step down because the government wanted him to. So it's kind of like he didn't talk about anything foreign policy-wise in this whole thing at the UN. He didn't say anything about foreign policy, and I think it's because it's the UN. But that's just me. I think he's trying to play it safe with the UN.
That's more of a flag to me because, Chavez and fucking Maduro have come into the UN and fucking said some real shit.
But he doesn't mention any of this stuff there throughout the whole speech because it's a 60-minute long speech. So anyway, I just want to reiterate, most of the stuff he says is like a guaranteed human rights of healthcare, jobs, and all of that. Things that Bernie Sanders pretty much said like 5 years ago, right? Let's see if Peru does it. That would make me very happy. But I think he's going to receive a lot of opposition, and he is already receiving a lot of opposition. So let's hear the rest of what he says. Healthcare, jobs, and more at 9 minutes and 41 seconds, and then you'll hear the very end.
We are also committed to a social development policy which will allow Peru to meet the Millennium Development Goals, especially with regard to access to water, healthcare networks, reducing poverty, eliminating extreme poverty, reducing infant mortality, full access to healthcare, guaranteeing inclusive and quality education, obtaining gender equality, especially job creation, and improving informal employment. Jobs are the only lasting antidote to poverty. Healthcare, education, access to water and sanitation cannot be a business which is a profitable one. These are fundamental human rights that we need to guarantee, ensuring universal access, which is of quality without any discrimination. As a school teacher by profession, I must call the international attention to the million of boys and girls and adolescents around the world who are not in school, who are not being educated, a situation which has been worsened by the healthcare crisis. I am convinced that society's capacity to overcome the complex challenges we must grapple with must include education for our children, our young people.
So he's making education the the forefront of his policy. He talked about guaranteeing access, especially to water. Now, Peru suffers from a drought in a large part of the country, so they have like made ways to collect water. He's talking about the lack of education, obviously in more rural areas. Traditionally, Peru doesn't get, like, here you have, and a lot of people can go to college. In Peru, you kind of had to take placement tests, and if you didn't get into a good placement test, you didn't go to college, even if, unless you had a ton of money to pay for it. So those sort of things do need changing, and that's some of the things that are changing. And then the
big thing I heard from that part was that he was saying that water is a human right and that should not be corporatized. Yep. So I just don't want to miss that. I don't want to miss noting that.
A lot of
it's
even
a big
before
deal to say that.
Even before,
very anti-capitalist.
Yeah, very anti-capitalist, and even before, in the very beginning of his speech, he wants to guarantee healthcare and guarantee equitable wages as a human right. He talks about things being a human right, which is like I said, like, it's like what a lot of progressives here talk about, but he's actually president. So, well, I mean, we're never gonna get somebody like that in the current system we have. So it's just kind of nice to see that. I'm just always scared of a Latin American country, and I fully believe that he and Bolivia and other Latin American countries need to unite to protect themselves. So the other one is his the equality for women. Like I said, people were afraid that he was a little bit more conservative on the social side, but he talks about women and supporting women and equality for women here.
Must be a leap forward in the effective exercise of rights for women. These are human rights, and they should go beyond recognition. They should be effectively enjoyed at all levels, local, regional, national, and worldwide. We must establish specific and concrete gender equity. We must eliminate all legal, social, and economic obstacles that hinder the empowerment of women and girls. We must fully guarantee their rights and eliminate all social practices and norms which are discriminatory against women. My government will do so.
Okay, and then just go ahead and play the next one, which is the Peru committed to Agenda 2030. This is where he talks about that.
Peru, Mr. President, is thereby linking its national agenda for social development with the priority agenda of the United Nations, with the common goal of applying and achieving Agenda 2030. It is time to put forward the social component in international relations and to commit ourselves to all actions, initiatives, and resources of the United Nations being used for the fulfillment of the Sustainable Development Goals. Social diplomacy is not just a national requirement, it is a global imperative.
Yeah. So that was very broad. Again, like he's just saying he's committed to the UN's agenda of 2030. We'll have to watch what that means. We'll see what that happens. Again, many people have said Agenda 2030 is what the Great Reset is. That's what pretty much, was presented at the forum in Davos. And yeah, we'll see what happens. It's very broad. Can't really say very much about that. And Jonny, you can just skip to the last one on terrorism and closing. He talks about terrorism and then closes it out. Yes.
Serious problem of terrorism. Peru has suffered from violent terrorism and has been able to prevail. We're aware of, reject, and condemn terrorism in all of its forms, and we support any action to fight it. We are committed to the global strategy of the United Nations against terrorism. Terrorism can never be a means for social transformation. Violence only leads to destruction, violations of human rights, and victims who are the poorest and the most dispossessed. Terrorism is violence against human dignity, and it is not reconcilable with the values of democratic societies. At the regional level, Peru is committed to international peace and security. It is committed to the respect of international law and an inclusive agenda. Mr. President, I am a teacher who is convinced that if we do not use the governments of all the world to help children move forward, we will not have accomplished anything. The present is fragile for world diplomacy, particularly for multilateralism. But I believe that our collective determination will always be stronger, and I stand convinced that with the initiative of a new global agenda, we can build together a world of peace, a world of friendship, of cooperation, and well-being for one and all. As a teacher, as a government, I must say this to you: let's invest in education, in an educated people. We'll never be fooled. Thank you.
So that was the overall gist of what he spoke about. Everything pretty much good. He's trying to guarantee basic human rights on, education, healthcare, water, wages, trying to stop the privatization of industries. He is speaking at the UN. He's talking about cooperation with the UN, and a global agenda of cooperation, which can be a good thing in those terms, but it can also, we've come to know, living where we are, that it can also be a nefarious thing. So we'll see what happens. So far, so good from what I've seen from Pedro Castillo. And he has a lot of opposition in the government right now. So we'll see how he does. Anything else you want to say, Johnny Pasta?
Oh, I just want to say that it seems like he's going to learn the hard way that you're not going to be able to play with these people, right? He's trying to extend like an olive branch. Let's say, let's work together. What's going on? That's why his speech is a little bit different than when the Chavistas got there, where they were a little bit more like, this is what you need to do, and this is what's happening. So I see a gentleman out here who just got into...
He's a pacifist, too.
Yeah, he's a pacifist, and he's going to try to make things work and whatnot. But I think he'll learn quickly that you're not going to be able to work with the West. They're not out there to work with you. They're out there to take your shit. So, I mean, we'll see. It was a...
Yeah.
It was an extension of an olive branch of sorts. Like you said, he's had difficulties in his government right away. So we'll see. But I'd like to see the speech now and then 3 years from now how it is, how different the speech is. So,
Alrighty. Any Super Rays?
We do have a Super Ray contribution, and it is from Benny Massimo. I saw that before. Thank you so much, Benny Massimo. It's great to see you back. I'm behind. Look at AOC's Twitter. She's getting ratioed by the people calling out her hypocrisy, and they should be calling her out. Her bullshit.